In 2023, Mia Doucet launched her book Strong. Successful women share stories of childhood trauma and triumph. Today, she is joining me from London, Ontario, to share what she learned about human connection and the pain of disconnection from interviewing over 100 women for this book, including me. As a founding member of Women's Global Alliance, Mia Doucet is fully aligned with the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to implement solutions to global challenges. Prior to the economic collapse, though, of 2008, Mia Doucet consulted with global automotive firms to secure and rescue multi-million-dollar Asia-Pacific contracts. Before that, her career spanned music, co-founding a successful business in educational travel, manufacturing, and banking. What gives her joy now, and until she never retires, is working with the women who has achieved success in her own business, but is deeply unhappy. Mia's gift is the ability to painlessly resolve traumas at the unconscious level. And this is what we strive to share about here on Awaken and Ascend. I'm Jennifer Regular, your host. Super excited that you're all here to join us. Every week, I get to bring a transformational mentor, a wellness advocate, or a spiritual change maker who's all about healing and empowerment, transformation and change, and being able to build the capacity to live life more fully and embrace all of who we are. So, Mia, it is so wonderful to have you here and sharing with us. And I love the multi-passionate life you've led up to this point, like many of us have that are part of this show. And I'd love to hear actually how it all got started for you.
I was supposed to be a concert pianist.
Oh, were you?
That was supposed to be the beginning. I'm not sure I was at that level, but my teachers thought I was. And then my father went bankrupt and sold the grand piano. So there we go.
Oh,
And a grand piano was the first piece of furniture I ever bought myself, and I'm still dragging it around.
oh my goodness.
It's like an albatross. Anyway, yeah, so I've had lots of changes in career, lots of changes in focus. But as you said, I expect that my work, this deep work I have with women, will be it until I never retire. I don't see myself ever retiring.
What inspired you to move in that direction, Mia?
Well, you mentioned that before doing this work, I was training engineers, and then I was working with automotive firms, companies like Siemens and Magna International and Toyota, to sell in Asian cultures until the financial debacle of 2007, 2008. And then everything fell apart for me. So every project I had, every contract I had got canceled, and future contracts. So I decided to go back to my first love, which is psychology. And I had already been trained for 3 years in Gestalt therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So I had some sort of background. And I myself had spent over $140,000, trying to clear things up in my own life.
Oh.
So I had a lot of experience with different methods.
And then you wrote this book. Well, you interviewed over 100 women for this book. And so what was the inspiration behind that? What made you decide that's what you wanted to do to get women? And how did you even get them to open up about the trauma and the triumph?
Right. Well, that's a lot of questions. Let me start with, I think that
I know, I'm so excited to hear everything.
it's perhaps true that we have, as human beings, have a deep-seated need to tell our story. And if we just find someone we can trust to tell our story to, then we will. The big deal was, after you've told me your story, after I've written it up, and after we've got the drawing, will you allow me to publish it? And some of those 100 women didn't. They just felt there was someone in the family they would hurt, right? Or it might hurt their business. So that's why I interviewed over 100. Another reason that I interviewed over 100 and wrote 81 stories is that at one point I decided that the story had to be age 8 and under at
Mm-hmm.
the formative years. So as to why I did that, why I did the interviews and wrote the book, I find in my work with women, it's almost always women, maybe 1 out of 10 is a man, but out of my work with people, the problems and the programs and the reiterating patterns all trace back to childhood. I haven't found an exception to that. And so they're unresolved traumas typically. And everybody has a different definition for what the trauma in their childhood was, but it was something that affected them very, very deeply. And children without any context make decisions, right? They'll make decisions that affect the rest of their life. And then we get to adulthood and we don't even remember that we made the decision or how we made the decision. I just found that really interesting. So I started interviewing, and that led to a book. I didn't start out thinking I was going to write a book. I just thought I would have some more case studies.
What was like what I'm thinking of now is like you it took you a lot of courage, to ask those questions, to ask people to share, their deepest stories of and those recollections of before they were 8. I'm curious also what came from that? Like what did you discover? Were there any surprises as you were interviewing these women? And were that surprised them as they were being interviewed?
Um, there were discoveries for me.
Mm-hmm.
There was that discovery of the underlying theme of connection or disconnection. That in every instance that a person develops a negative pattern or an ongoing trauma or whatever, there was disconnection from the parent. And the parent is not entirely to blame because the parent, typically herself, had trauma. And that was a situation with me. So one of the things I discovered was if I had known what I know now, I would have raised my children differently. I would have been much more protected. So that was one of the things. And what was your question again?
What the surprises were, what the discoveries were for you, or even the women
Oh,
that
the other thing, and
telling
this has been ongoing since I stopped, since even the book was published, it's this nagging question that goes through my mind every day. Where were the adults? Where were the adults when this was going on with their child? Didn't they see? And I had a conversation this morning with a woman from the UK who is in the book and who has suffered real sexual trauma. And we were talking about that. And she said, well, I think I've resolved that in my own mind. She said, I think the adults were trying to protect themselves. And in a lot of the stories that you read in my book, I think the mother, is trying to protect her relationship, typically a new relationship. And so she is not seeing or she's not acknowledging that the child is suffering.
That's so interesting, Mia, because I heard you say, like, if you knew what you knew now, you'd be a better parent from, many years ago. And then you said that you'd protect your children more. And then now we're talking about that protection again. And one of the reasons being protecting a new relationship. What else do you think is underneath all of that, the need for protection? What do you think people are needing protection from?
Protection from a sense of shame, protection from what will other people think, what will other people say. They may not even know. They may not even realize that they're protecting themselves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we human beings are very proficient at hiding things from ourselves.
Absolutely. And you're right. We don't know what we don't know, you know, until we
The
know.
other thing is,
Then we
the
wish
other
we could have
thing is,
known.
I think as parents, we don't realize how a child interprets things. As I
Mm,
said earlier, a child has no context. Like with my own children, my daughter tells me she resents that when she was 3 years old, her father and I took her two older brothers on a cruise. And all she got was a stupid stuffed teddy bear. We didn't do that to hurt her, you know?
yeah.
But that she remembers that very, very keenly,
Wow.
this connection,
Yeah.
right? She was only 3. We thought there was nothing on a cruise for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big mistake. I actually had a client whose entire life hinged on the fact that when she was around 4 years old, her family went on an excursion, a 1 day excursion, and excluded her. And
Oh,
imagine what a child does.
yeah.
But I always say, an older brother throwing a little girl's teddy bear out the window, that hurts, that's trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that you're so sensitive, you would absolutely appreciate that, but
Absolutely. I'm seeing the bear go out and I'm seeing the girl
I
falling
know. I thought I saw you see that.
asleep. Yeah.
Um,
And so there is the trauma and there's also the triumph. So Mia, what kind of discoveries emerged through that, through the triumph? How did these women overcome? What did they triumph?
oh, they triumph over their childhood struggles. And this is interesting. You're opening an interesting topic. Almost all of them, it was through education. It was through deciding they were going to be good at something and they were going to be good in school. So as I read through the book, I'm surprised again to see how many people did extremely well by saying that they were going to be really good. One of the women, she's in the first story in the book, Loretta from Italy, from Milan, who says on the first page of the book, she likes to believe that her mother didn't know that she was putting her in the care of a prostitute. You know, so Loretta has this horrible life, and then what does she do? She becomes Apple Computer's top selling salesperson.
Wow.
If she decides to be outstanding in school, outstanding at whatever she does. So that's triumph, right?
Yes, deciding who you're going to be and what you're going to stand for and how you're going to express yourself out in the world.
And a lot of women in the book, let's say women who suffered sexual trauma, um, are making their livelihood about helping other people through trauma.
Yes.
So they become a gift to the world, through their own pain. Every story is different, but I mean, I picked successful women.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with successful women, so we know that they all had their own type of triumph.
Absolutely, because they're already successful and accomplished. And that soulful success, I think, comes from being able to move through that trauma, to like be in it and come through it and be out of it, and then help others through it too in some way, either by sharing their story or working in a similar profession.
Yes.
And yeah, you
And
mentioned.
and and in your story, for example, A Gift of
Mhm.
Angels, um, it was in recognizing the gift that you were given,
Mm,
right? And living through that, and just
yes,
being you, and
yes,
not worrying about what other people think, how other people are going to interpret your career.
right, right.
So
Not
self-discovery.
always smooth sailing in that way. I do get rattled by people's opinions every now and then for a little
Oh,
while.
we all did. We
What?
all did. It's a
Yeah.
growth thing, isn't it? We need to grow out of that. You know what I think that comes back to is
What?
when we were living in the jungle, all those eons ago, you had to be part of the tribe
Hmm.
because your livelihood depended on it.
True. This
And
is
I think we have that at a cellular level.
yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And the willingness and the drive to survive and also thrive, and evolving in a way that it's not just fighting for that, but working together for that, coming into more awareness about how we can be in more harmony with each other, share resources and support with one another, and really evolve in a way that uplifts humanity, and in being in that way authentically, we also raise the vibration of this planet. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of people to create that kind of movement. And so you bring together all these women in this book, and then all the readers to come and read and experience what these women had gone through, both in their trauma and in their triumph, and be
Mhm.
inspired by that. But even at the own journey that you took for yourself as well, because you mentioned, you spent a lot of money, over $100,000, looking for healing and recovery and support and resources
Mhm.
that would move you into a better place, into a better life. And it's amazing how we have that drive to continue on that journey, right? What
People who
strengthens
succeed
us.
do. I think that there are people who fall by the wayside.
Yes,
That's where addiction comes in,
yes.
perhaps because they've given up or they're
Suicide.
looking for a solution in a bottle or in drugs.
Yeah.
Um, but where a person is successful, yes, I agree.
And that's what's interesting too, because like you said, and what we shared from your bio, is that you work with successful women who are well achieved, well accomplished, and yet deeply unhappy. So,
Yeah.
where do you think that disconnect is?
Well, I think that, and almost every woman I work with has had talk therapy,
Hmm.
including psychotherapy, hypnosis. She does yoga, she meditates, she reads the good books. So energy psychology, tapping, all of which are wonderful. They're all excellent techniques, excellent methods.
Hmm.
But in that person's instance, they don't go deep enough. You know? I'm thinking I'm going to write about the 5%. There's 5%, I think, of the population that needs something deeper. And so that's what I do. I'm able to change programs and beliefs at the subconscious level.
Oh,
I know, and it's painless and we even have fun. And it's not long and protracted. So we get some really, really good results.
and how does that reconnect one sense of self? How do you do that at the subconscious level? What is your work?
I think that the reconnection happens as a byproduct
Hmm.
because what we're doing is we're clearing out negative patterns,
Ah, hmm.
negative beliefs, clearing out old shame, anger, fears, defensiveness, betrayals. So we clear all that out, and I think a sense of self emerges.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And I know that you have a special gift for everyone that's been watching. And of course, we'll have links to that and the gifts that I offer too in the show notes. And it's a manifesto that you're offering, a journey to self power, a very affirmative
It's
product, if
very
you
affirming,
will,
isn't
something that we
it?
can visually see and say and experience every day if we choose to. Can you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit more about that and how people can receive that?
Well, if you go to my website, so my name is Mia Doucet. You can see it on the screen probably, right? So my website is miadoucet.com. And then if you want the manifesto/manifesto. So miadoucet.com/manifesto, and I'll send it to you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. So we're going to have that link in there. And of course, it'll direct people to your website as well so they can find out more about you, what you offer, and your services.
Yeah.
And yeah, but while we have you here, Mia, I'd love to hear if there's anything more that you want to share, anything that's come up with you in our conversation that
Well, what is top of mind for me right now, Jennifer, is the book.
yes, strong.
And I would love if someone is interested in the type of conversation we've had today, if someone is interested in women's stories, in stories of childhood under the age of 8, someone who's not too easily depressed,
Mm.
um, if they download the book from Amazon, it's on a promotional rate right now, and write even a one sentence review would be wonderful. Because my next step is to go for corporate sponsors so we can spread the word to 1 million girls around the world who are struggling.
Oh, yes, let's do that. Let's do that,
They
everyone.
can draw hope and
Please.
inspiration from reading other stories and say, well, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Yes. Yes,
Because as
beautiful.
you know, these are stories we don't often tell
No,
people.
no, no. But I'm hearing it more and more through this podcast and through
Yes,
others
I'm
as
sure.
well. And it's very exciting, like exciting in the way that people are gathering the courage and the capacity to share their story, knowing that it's making an impact on themselves,
Yes,
the people that are hearing it, that are receiving it, and which encourages more and more people to talk. And that's what I see is happening. We're really building the momentum in that, you know?
for sure. Because even on a private level, you and I know that if you share with me something heartfelt, if you share with me something about yourself, that opens the way for me to also share, right?
Yes, and
Because
strengthening
there's an
connection.
acceptance. There's a
Yes, the acceptance. Yeah. And really connects people.
it does.
Yeah. Because you're right, there is so much disconnect. Oh my goodness. You know, to our own selves, our own emotions, in our families, in our communities, in our nations, in our world, you know? And it doesn't have to be that way. There are other ways of
I do
living, of
think
being with each other.
that if you and I can deeply connect to our own self, and you would say to our own soul,
Absolutely.
then we're not as shaken by the disconnect around us.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we feel the connection. We can feel it when we're connected with ourselves.
And I do think that the first step is connection to self.
Absolutely.
But if I know who I am in this life, what I stand for, what my
Hmm.
values are,
Yeah.
what I care about.
That's what transformed the whole message of my book that I had published about 10 years ago now. When I first conceived of the book, actually, I was a very young age when I conceived of it. Find out more about that story on my website. Um, I was thinking, you know, it was all about when society determines our destiny and how unsettled I felt about that from what I was observing. And when I published the book, the title actually became Embrace Your Power, a healing journal of self discovery. And
Mhm.
it's full of teachings and insights and questions, prompts to journal and reflect and contemplate and heal the relationship with ourselves. It's like a pilgrimage to our heart's deepest desire, you know.
Mhm.
And for me, my deepest desire is really for each and every one of us to recognize that you have a purpose, that you are meant for this world. And myself and many of the other women that are featured in this book have also experienced that on some level that, you know, we may feel like we didn't belong at some point and that we were a burden in some way and punished for being here. And then come to learn that we are meant for this world and gone on to triumph and do some pretty amazing things and have some deep impact, significant impact. and
Mhm.
revel in our own significance, not in a, a braggy, boasting kind of way, but in a way that, yeah, I matter,
Right.
you know. Mia, it's been so
That's what your
wonderful.
story in Strong is all about, right? I mean, if I recall, your your next older sibling was like 14 years old when you were born, right? Because
That's
you were kind
correct.
of
Yeah, you remember that well.
an
Hmm.
afterthought. You were kind of a late in life
Well, it was a
baby.
big surprise. Yes.
And the other thing that you said after that was something about if it had been a boy, if you had been a boy, it might have been a happier event or something like that.
That's right. That's right. Because my mom had already three grown girls by that point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
a boy might have made up for the fact that she got pregnant again at, in her
yeah,
40s. But,
yeah,
and I used to joke that, yeah, when I came out as a girl, we hadn't gotten along since. But, I was lucky that I was able to resolve that way of thinking in my mental construct with her before she passed. But that's
mm,
like you say, it's that disconnect. We don't know what our children are thinking and carrying until they
yeah,
open up and have a conversation with us. So,
yeah,
yeah, I think for me that's really important is to ask and to share and to talk and to express what's there,
yeah,
to untap those trapped emotions and release them, let them
yeah,
go, those things that are holding us back and creating more disconnect and feeling of not belonging, and to really step into who we are and who we came here to be
right.
and who we
And to not be afraid to do that.
that's right. To have the
You know,
courage. It does take
we have a
courage.
lot of resistance to change.
Yeah.
Human beings have a lot of resistance to change.
Yeah.
But if you can work through that, it's very freeing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so in the show notes, everyone, you'll find some guides to living with passion and purpose and what that means, what that looks like. And there's also for those on more of a healing journey or going through a period of a lull maybe in your life, some fatigue, some depression, some despair, some just tired and overwhelmed and just kind of done, then there's a wonderful guide in there for you called Soul Care and finding solace in everyday life. So being able to integrate all these concepts that we talk about here today and on the show in general, um, it's a nice way to integrate all of that through those downloads, and all of that's available down there. And be sure to get the manifesto as well, very affirmative and reinforcing and positive to really just remind us of our power and of ourselves and what we need and how to meet those needs. So, Mia, it's been such a pleasure, joy, and an honor having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Oh, Jennifer, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And of course, to all of you, so great to have you here joining us. We'd love to know what you think of the show. Give us a thumbs up if it resonated with you, and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We always have something inspiring for you to keep up your spirit. Bye for now.